today, in his opening remarks, our U.S. Senator Harry Reid indicated, and I quote, "It is clear that distributed energy, energy storage, and other sources of electricity and efficiency are competing with utility-scale power plants, as they should. This fact cannot be ignored." And indeed, the facts cannot be ignored. U.S. solar has increased 418% since 2010, and more than half of this increase comes in the form of solar panels on homes and businesses. 44 states and the District of Columbia have authorized net metering, and nearly 60% of our utilities across the country are currently reviewing their net metering policies. Allow me to welcome to the stage our two speakers for our debate. Let me welcome Charlie Chigetti, who is the Senior Advisor for Pacific Economics Group. Welcome, Charlie. And welcome Lisa Wood, the Executive Director for the Institute for Electric Innovation and the Vice President of the Edison Foundation. Welcome. I love this desk. I feel like candy control. Let me talk a little bit about the format as our speakers prepare themselves. Each will be provided the opportunity to give you a 3-minute introduction. We'll then go into a Q&A for approximately 15 minutes, and we hopefully will include a couple of rapid-fire questions. Then each of the participants will be provided the opportunity for closing statements, and then I have the opportunity to do a quick wrap. So, let me then turn this over to you, Mr. Chigetti, for your opening statement. Thank you.
Good morning, everyone. Thank you all for having me here. Let me start out with a news flash. There is no requirement for customers to buy electricity from utilities. And there's certainly no precedent to require customers who choose not to buy electricity from their utility to pay for it anyhow. I think it's really important to keep that basic idea in mind, because you can't understand the issues that are involved in the net metering debate and even the distributed generation debate, in my opinion, as long as we maintain the false notion that there's a duty to buy what the utility is selling. I want to talk about 3 fundamental issues today. The first is that the electric industry is now telling the world, and I doubt some of their math and some of their analysis, that they can build renewable energy for half the cost of what customers can spend or would spend to place it on their rooftops. 2 questions have to be asked. First is, cheaper for whom? And recall when you answer that question, the second issue, which is that half of something, where I come from, is always more than nothing. And I say that because when customers pay to install solar units on their rooftops, the system's not paying, the utility system and their customers are not paying that installation. The second thing that's happening out there is that many utilities are going out and starting to challenge net metering. They're doing it by calling it a rich man's subsidy. They're ignoring some of the demographics of who's putting solar rooftops on and how leasing program has extended the installations of solar rooftops on moderate family rooftops. But the most important thing is, what they're trying to do is to make it seem that the customer generator is selling electricity to the utility. That's not what net metering is about. Net metering is about placing customer generation in a bank, much like we place our money in a bank. And when you do that, what's really going on out there is a situation where the utility gets to use that electricity in the meantime, but the customer has the right to call it back. This is not a sale. This is not about avoiding costs. It's not about whether it's cheaper to get it some other way. This is simply about the world in which we bank electricity that belongs to the customer, is never sold to the utility, and the customer, under reasonable terms and conditions, can call it back. Finally, I'll maintain throughout my presentation today that most of the tariff changes that we're hearing about around the country are unfair, discriminatory, anti-competitive, and self-serving because they're all about going out there to try to allow the utilities to guarantee the revenue recovery. Thank you.
Lisa.
Good morning, everyone, and thank you, Senator, for inviting me to participate in the 8th Annual National Clean Energy Summit. I'm delighted to be here, and I can tell it's going to be a really fun debate. Before we get started, I'm curious, how many of you in the audience already have, or would like to have, solar on your rooftop? A lot of you, and I'm not surprised here in Nevada. In the U.S., solar energy is a megatrend. We love solar. It produces carbon-free electricity, and for the most part, it produces energy when we need it during the day. What makes all of this solar growth possible is the power grid. The power grid is vitally important. It powers everything we do. Today, the power grid is already integrating a diverse set of renewable energy resources. As Misha Williams said earlier, PG&E, one of them is rooftop solar. In states like Hawaii, California, Arizona, and right here in Nevada, we are witnessing exponential growth in rooftop solar. There's no question. Solar is a critically important part of our energy future. I'd like to use some of my time today to address some of the myths and facts about solar. One common myth is that the utility industry is not committed to solar. I'm pleased to report to you that the electric utility industry today is leading the way on solar. Utility-scale solar projects amount to nearly 50% of all installed capacity in the U.S., and that's expected to triple by the end of 2016. In addition, the industry is expected to invest about $9 billion per year over each of the next 5 years. That's $9 billion. You heard about some of those projects earlier today from Jim Peters, the CEO of First Solar, and some of them are right here in Nevada. Another common misconception is that rooftop solar customers don't need the power grid. Actually, rooftop solar customers use the grid 24/7 to import power, to export power, and to make sure that their homes have the exact amount of electricity they need at every moment of the day to power all of their devices. I think it's only fair that rooftop solar customers who use the grid continue to pay for the grid. You may also be hearing that the grid gets in the way of rooftop solar. Not so. The grid integrates, connects, and supports rooftop solar. For example, even at peak output, rooftop solar systems need support of the grid to start large motors. That means on a hot day like today, the grid connection is what allows rooftop solar owners to turn on their air conditioners. And finally, some of you may be hearing that today's net energy metering policies work just fine. The fact is, regulators across the U.S., and Rose mentioned this earlier, whose mandate is to protect all customers, recognize that decades-old net energy metering policies need to be updated to ensure that electric rates are fair and that unreasonable cost shifts do not occur. State regulators are already changing these policies. The bottom line, I agree with Nancy Fun. This is the golden age of solar. So let's work together to get the policies right, especially the net metering policies. I look forward to the discussion tonight. Thank you.
Lisa, you have written quite extensively on the need to appropriately address the issue of solar pricing, evaluations. You acknowledge the declining cost of energy, but you do reference these embedded subsidies, lack of transparency, and there's also this conversation stemming from some of the folks that you represent that only affluent households have the opportunity to advance rooftop solar and subsidize. So please elaborate.
Okay, so